All right, looks like we're all here, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Data Governance with Modern Analytics webinar. Today, you'll get a chance to see the Watson Knowledge Catalog live, as well as some of the key features and benefits of the platform. But just a quick note before we get started, today's session is in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions, please type them into the questions box below, and we'll do our best to get them answered with you at the end of the presentation. Also, for those of you wondering, the session will be recorded, and I'll send out a copy of the slides as well. Okay, so joining us today, we have Susanna Tai. She's the Watson Knowledge Catalog Offering Manager at IBM. So feel free to ask her any questions as we go along, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. So Susanna, at this point, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, sure, thank you. Just want to verify, am I broadcasting right now?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, all right, so hi, I'm Susanna Tai, and I'm an Offering Manager for Watson Knowledge Catalog. So for today, what I would like to talk to you about is the strategy and vision of Watson Knowledge Catalog. I'm very excited to share with you our upcoming release of WKC that's coming up, go through the details as to what it contains, and we'll also finish off with a quick demo to show what the product's all about. Okay, so that's practically the agenda for today. So let's start off with a few slides on the overview, why the strategy that's driving our product. So a lot of our customers in different industries, they're starting to leverage AI in order to drive innovations, transform businesses. But at the very heart of that is really data. Most of the customers would say AI is their top priority. But yet, only 15% are telling us that they're really getting what they need. And in fact, when we there are also other additional studies which show that a lot of the data scientists, they actually spend 80% of their time, finding data, trying to get access to it before they can even use it for analytics. So the key issues that or the challenges that they have are these data scientists or the data consumers. They don't really know what data they have in the organization. What data can be trusted, especially if data that's been just added to the data lake without governance. And even if they have found the data or know what kind of data they need, they just don't know how to get access to that data. So what does it take to create a trusted data foundation that is ready to be consumed for AI? How can organizations unlock the value in their data? At IBM, we see it as a series of foundational steps that are needed to help our customers accelerate on their journey to AI, and that's by building a trusted data foundation that's ready for analytics within a seamlessly integrated data and AI platform. So at the foundation of that is, the first step is a collection. So this is about establishing a strong data foundation, making data simple and accessible, regardless of where that data live. It means giving the right people the right access so that they can get what they need when they need it. So the data collected can also be varied these days. They can be structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, and also from many different source systems as well. And the next step is what we call the organized step. So this is where we need to build a trusted, business-ready analytics foundation that provides a single source of truth and governance. This is where the data stewards, your subject matter experts, would enrich and provide the business context to the data, and most importantly, share that knowledge across the enterprise. So let's say, what does the data mean? How can it be used? Where did the data come from? How good is it? And how can I trust it? All that additional information need to be captured in the metadata in order to help the users understand and trust their data. So once your data is accessible and is AI ready, then you can start applying advanced analytics and AI models. So this analyze step provides the analytics capabilities and tools needed to build, deploy, and manage your AI models within an integrated portfolio of technology. So now that you have created a data and analytics pipeline, then you can now infuse machine learning everywhere in your organization. So this step operationalized those AI use cases with applications and services, increasing speeding the time to value. So when I present Watson Knowledge Catalog, our ultimate goal really is focusing on that organized step in the previous slide. So our goal is to provide one source of truth for your data in the organization, so that your users, the data consumers, doesn't matter what their role is or the different personas, they would know that data, they can trust the data, and they can also understand and consume that data. So what that means is, the data must be complete. They can be easily found. It's clean. They can easily access that data, and also, through self-service, they can actually get to the data without, too much additional help and time lag, typically that they would need from the IT department. So that's really what we mean by business-ready data. So in order for us to deliver that trusted data to the enterprise, the business-ready data to the enterprise, we do that by providing a seamlessly integrated end-to-end solution that not only creates business-ready data, but also delivers that trusted data to data consumers. Now, these are data that the users know, and they can trace back to the original source, the data that they can understand and also trust. The core components of our solution are enterprise data integration, data governance, data quality, and data consumption. And they work cohesively together within Watson Knowledge Catalog. Now, there are, when we look at the competitive landscape, there are other different vendors out there, who may excel in one of these boxes, one or two of these boxes, let's say. But it is our firm belief that only an end-to-end platform can be effective in both creating as well as delivering business-ready data. So coincidentally, actually earlier this year, Gartner Group actually released a research paper. In that article, it actually describes, what are the qualities to build a successful data lake. And the central message was exactly on the strategy of WKC. It was about the importance of an end-to-end fully integrated platform, and that mirrors exactly to our vision of where we want to take the Watson Knowledge Catalog, the product. So WKC fully supports the data pipeline to deliver trusted data foundation that is ready for AI. As I mentioned, from the ladder to AI perspective, we focus on that organization step. So how we do that is we do that by providing a set of capabilities with machine learning in order to automate the organization of data as much as possible. That's because in addition to delivery, in the delivery of trusted data to users, our other main objective is to make the whole data supply chain more efficient through automation. So that, let's say, a data scientist who didn't have access to a governed and curated data catalog, it might take them, let's say, months in order to find and prepare data for use. But when they actually have access to an organized and trusted data foundation, the data preparation time can actually be shortened to just days. It's not going to take them months. So if you recall the very first slide I mentioned, where we said data scientists are spending 80% of the time trying to find and prep the data. So that is the time that we want to save for our customers. So this diagram actually provides a very good summary of the capabilities that Watson Knowledge Catalog provides in support of the data pipeline. So these include helping customers build a governance framework. So near the bottom here. And so this is about providing the framework such as how you can define the business glossary terms, the vocabulary that you use in your organization, what are the policies that your organization needs to follow. Maybe there are business policies, there are data policies. What about rules? You have policies, but you also want to create the rules in order to enforce those policies. How can we protect sensitive data? So we can actually provide, the policy enforcement and the rules in order to help you do that. We also have reference data, to help you manage the valid values that you use across the organization as well. And to round that up, in the core services that we have, we also have data quality management. That's about defining the data quality rules. How would you define data quality in your data? Perhaps different data sets, they need to look at different data dimensions. So we have the ability to help you manage the different data quality rules, the data quality dimensions, depending on what you need to measure in terms of data quality. And also data lineage. A lot of customers need to know, if they're looking at a particular asset, they need to know where it came from, all the way from the source to the target and all the transformations in between. They need to have a deep understanding of that lineage. It's not just for the data itself, but also for reports, especially for regulatory compliance. So that's where we actually provide the data lineage services in order to help you understand how that data came to be. So that is the bottom, the core services that we provide. And then we also have automation services. What takes data stewards, CDO offices a long time to do, to curate the data, is now that they have, let's say, added these assets to the catalog, so they need to give meaning to them. A column that you found in, let's say, a mainframe system, the column names are very short. It's not always clear what that column name means. So that's where a lot of governance teams, they would actually assign business terms that you've defined, in the glossary. They would associate these business terms to these columns. And some organizations would even insist on associating, making sure that all the columns have been tagged with a business term before they even publish those. So as you can imagine, that can be a very time-consuming process. So what Watson Knowledge Catalog provides, towards the left of the boxes, the automated metadata curation services, that's where we actually have embedded a lot of the machine learning, AI, deep learning, in order to help accelerate that process. So we have ability to automatically discover your data, automatically classifying your data, understanding the content of your data, automatically detecting where your PII, personally identifiable information, where they're located in your enterprise, and also automatically analyzing your data in order to come up with a data quality score. So that's easy to know, looking at this asset, is this particular asset of high quality or not? And also finally, automatically assigning the business terms. So all that, all this automation can only be made possible once you have built that, the core data governance framework down at the bottom that I just talked about, the terms, the relationships between terms and data classes. So all that set up, will actually help you, or help you use our tool in order to, speed up all that process. So all that information goes into the central repository, the knowledge catalog. It's still pretty much a metadata repository. So even as you ingest assets into the catalog, your data actually still resides in your source system. So what we capture in Watson Knowledge Catalog remain the metadata. So once we have all that available, then we actually can make that data available to the data consumers. So it's all about, delivering this business-ready data. So now that the assets that you have cataloged in the system, they have the right terms, they have the correct data classes. So now when a user or data consumer looking at that data, they now understand what that data means and how to use them. So from a self-services interactions perspective, WKC strives to make it very easy to use, because it's all about, not just creating business-ready data, it's about delivering that so that the data can be monetized. So in the self-services box, So the capabilities that we provide are provide a very powerful search that'll help you easily find what you're looking for, and then to also use it. From a collaboration perspective, we provide capabilities to help you tag, additional information to help with the search, provide comments, share with your teammates or colleagues, like how these assets are used, and provide additional recommendations to the community. So from a workflow perspective, we also have workflow support within the Watson Knowledge Catalog. And actually, for the upcoming release, the workflows is all on the management of the governance entities. It's on managing your terms, policies, reference data, etc. And the final piece that I'm going to talk about on the slide is the self-services data prep. So data scientists, when they find the data that they need, typically the next step that they need to do is to shape that data. Can they just take what we need in the source system and be able to use that directly. So the next logical step they typically need to do is to prep the data before they can actually feed that data into, let's say, machine learning model or in other analytics tools, say Jupyter Notebook. So within Watson Knowledge Catalog, we also have built-in data prep capabilities that users can do some lightweight joining of assets, joining assets from different source systems. Let's say I have a data asset from Oracle and a different asset from Azure Data Lake. As long as it's all in the catalog, I can actually use this data prep tool in order to join these different data assets. Okay. So for our upcoming release of the Watson Knowledge Catalog, all those capabilities is going to be powered by our IBM's Cloud Pak for Data platform. So what that gives us is, all the things that all the functionality and capabilities will be delivered through microservices. The workloads are containerized, so that from the deployment management of the upgrades perspective, it's more flexible in terms of how you deploy, orchestrate, and manage these workloads. The platform, the Cloud Pak for Data platform, also allows for the customers, if they want to deploy this product or this tool onto other clouds, they can also do that. Let's say if they want to actually deploy on Azure or AWS, they will be able to do that as well. Okay. So from a portfolio perspective, so we just talked about, for me, I'm talking about Watson Knowledge Catalog today, more on the preparation or the organization step of the Aladdin AI. But within this platform, the Cloud Pak for Data platform, as they go on to this journey to AI, they can also provision other products as well. Let's say Watson Studio. Watson Studio provides a lot of the data science tools within that, and it's fully integrated with Watson Knowledge Catalog. So if the customer, if they have a provision Watson Knowledge Catalog and Cloud Pak for Data, and then they later on add on the Watson Studio, all the data that they're cataloged, they can actually move seamlessly into the Watson Studio tools. Same with how Watson Machine Learning is integrated with the Watson Studio. It's also available in Cloud Pak for Data platform. This is where you can actually deploy your machine learning models and also train them and so forth. And that's also Watson Open Scale. That's basically our product that will operationalize the machine learning models. So that's the full picture in terms of, like where you can actually start, with Watson Knowledge Catalog, and then as you mature in this journey to AI, there are additional tools that are also part of this platform that you'll be able to leverage down the road, and everything will be seamlessly integrated. So if we look at the use cases, historically, if you're familiar with IBM's Information Governance Catalog or Information Analyzer, the use cases are pretty much focused on regulatory compliance, They just need to improve data quality. You know, we have some customers who just have an information analyzer just for the data quality piece. You know, from the IGC, you know, it's just enterprise data and AI governance, and also metadata management. But what I'm presenting today, you know, are, you know, how we, like a Watson Knowledge Catalog has expanded on those, you know, those traditional use cases. So by bringing in the data consumption, bringing the data, making that data available to now new sets of users, your data scientists, your business analysts, making that data available for them to analyze and use in models. You know, now we're talking about more use cases that enterprises can actually take advantage of, how they can monetize the data, and also providing that self-service access to data that's easy to use. Providing an enterprise data catalog, and also data lakes. You know, there are some mistakes made with the early implementations of data lakes, you know, but you know, where they lack is, you know, the ability to actually govern the data in the data lake. But you know, with Watson Knowledge Catalog, you know, we continue to add more and more connections, you know, including connections to your data lakes, so you can actually start cataloging your data in your data lakes and annotate them and also share that data as well. So we will see a bit of reference data management. I'm going to have more slides to go over all of those capabilities in greater detail. And so that's reference data management as well. And also data ops maturity. So this is about creating that a very efficient data supply chain, data pipeline, going from data collection, enriching that and making that available. So that's what we call standard called data ops, kind of like what DevOps did to software development. You know, so from a data ops perspective, you know, we can also streamline that process, automate as much as possible to speed up, you know, the time it takes to collect the data all the way to consuming that data. And beyond that, you know, so once we have that data, the data foundation, you know, that's where, you know, from a platform perspective, Cloud Pak platform perspective, you know, we can actually start expanding even to more use cases, you know, more into the analyze and infuse capabilities, you know, where you can use smart analytics, data science, machine learning. There's also data visualization, you know, a whole slew of additional use cases that will be open to our customers, you know, once they're on this platform. So with that, that's basically covers, you know, a quick overview in terms of, you know, what is WKC, what are the key capabilities, and as well as, you know, where the WKC can be used. So now I'm actually go step back now into like a little bit more detail into what will be in the upcoming release. You know, like this is more concrete. Now going back to that diagram where I show all the different capabilities. So we'll start off with, you know, when I look at WKC from a practical perspective, where would our customers start? So I would say, you know, in order to build that trusted data foundation, we start off with building your data governance framework. So what does that include? So I had mentioned earlier, you know, fundamental to this, the data governance is basically your business glossary. By that I mean, you know, like defining the terms. What does all the vocabulary that you use in your organization, you know, we should be able to capture that and leverage that information as well. So that becomes, you know, like I don't like to say the word data dictionary because it means something else to some people, but like from a glossary perspective, you know, term provides a definition in terms of what a data element means. So from a glossary term perspective, you know, we will support not only just describing what a term is, a description, but you can also capture the relationships between terms. You can create different hierarchies of terms, a type of hierarchies or part of hierarchies about these terms, also synonyms as well as abbreviations. So all that, you know, can be built into the glossary so that actually you can see how, you know, different terms may be related, and as the user, you know, starts exploring the glossary, you know, they can actually uncover more and more data assets that may be relevant to them. Next are policies and rules. So policies, as I mentioned, these could be data policies. It could be, some business policies that you need to define. So we have the structure that will allow you to create policies, and some policies you can actually see all the related policies. Very closely associated with that, are like rules that you can also define. Within Watson Knowledge Catalog, we have different types of rules that you can define. There are, so what you're seeing here, the example here that I have here is basically a very simple example of a data protection rule. So data protection rule in WKC allows you to mask data dynamically, or you can deny people access. So what it does is it will detect, when at the point when a user tries to access a data asset, our policy enforcement engine will kick in. It will actually start evaluating, looking at who is the user, what is the data asset that they're accessing, and what are the data protection rules that are in place. And then it will go through, all those contexts and then come up with an evaluation and say, okay, for this user, what can this user see? Or maybe this user can't even access that data at all. So it will just completely block that user from accessing that asset. So this is one of our core capability, this data protection rules and also policy enforcement engine. So it's actually quite powerful in terms of how we can actually make sure that the sensitive data in your enterprise data catalog, doesn't matter where it is, as long as the rules have been defined, we know what your data contains, we will be able to protect your the sensitive data. So that's on rules and policies. So reference data is, that is, if you're familiar with information governance catalog, so this will be a new concept that we have added. So reference data is basically, code value pairs. It's a set of valid values. I look at it simply as code tables. There may be some code tables that the customers want to keep track of, so we can actually catalog those as well, or you can import them from a CSV. So importing them, you actually load them into code value, into a set of values. So these can actually be used within our Watson Knowledge Catalog as well. So not only for lookups, now that we have reference data, we also, the next topic is a data class. So when we create data class, we can also use reference data as a matching pattern in order to infer a data class as we go through the discovery and profiling process. Okay. So the next concept is data classes. So data classes is like a very similar, almost at the same level as business terms. It's also another, one of the very important core governance entity that we support. So data classes is really associated with a code in a way. So it's basically what we use in order to understand the content of your data. So what I mean is, when you define the data class, you have to provide a pattern. So, and that is the pattern that we'll use in order to infer, figure out what exactly in your data. How we detect your emails, your names, SSN, credit card information, or even customer numbers, all those, how we can actually know about those is through the data class. And out of the box, we have over 160 data classes that come with WKC, as soon as you turn it on. But most typically, our customers would take a look at the data classes and then decide which ones they would like to keep, and also customize or add additional data classes that they would like to our processing. They would like our processing to actually include in the profiling process. So from a matching method perspective, there are different ways that we can actually match the data. Traditionally, it will be through valid values, could be through regular expressions. You can provide a Java class. And so in WKC, the upcoming release, be able to match to the reference data that you've created in the catalog as well. So you can actually, so instead of providing a set of valid values on the data class itself, you can actually reference a reference data set. So data class, is really, like I mentioned, is really core to the whole system, especially with the automation services. And we also use that for the data protection that we just talked about, because what our customers want is for the system to be smart. As soon as we ingest, we should be able to understand, or should be able to figure out whether it contains PII data. So this is a technology that actually helps us do that. Okay. Classifications. So that's another one of the 6 core governance entities that we support. So we support classification. So basically, you want to classify information, classify some data assets. This is where you can actually define what those classifications are. Typically, the typical classifications are confidential, PII, and sensitive information. So we have those out of the box. But customers, you can define, additional classifications that you need in your organization. Perhaps a label like, this is a crown jewel, or this is trusted data, things like that, or gold, something. So classifications is something that you can actually use to mark, especially mark a data asset in order for the data stewards or the CDO office to easily find. Let's say, for example, if they want to know quickly, where are my PII data? So as long as the data assets have been classified properly, then they'll be able to quickly and easily find where those assets are. So almost close to the end of the governance framework. So categories is the ability to organize these governance artifacts. So as I mentioned, there are 6 of them. I'll line them off again. So these are the terms, policies, governance rules, reference data, data classes, and classifications. So those 6 entities basically make up your data governance framework. And categories are a way to help organize, these assets. Could be, you can create hierarchy trees based on geography, or you can create them based on your line of business or whatever criteria that you want. So it's a ability to organize like a different governance artifacts. Just to round this up, so like all the 6 governance artifacts that I mentioned, you can actually manage them through workflow. So the workflow will support, different actors playing different roles. So you can define, who are the users who can actually create or update these governance artifacts. It could be a different set of users who actually do the review, and yet a 3rd set of users who can actually publish all these new and updated artifacts, and then make them available in the catalog. So that's the workflow. Is based on activity, and out of the box, we have some default templates. And if some companies are small, they may not actually have these many roles, so they may actually just want to, have everything auto-publish just based on the permissions. And so you can actually have that option as well. So everything can auto-publish, or it can actually go through a review and approval process. Okay, so that's a lot of slides, but that's basically covers a very important topic. Basically, what constitutes our data governance framework. So from a WKC perspective, so once you've done that, then the next thing that we need to do is to start discovering and understanding your assets. So that's all about, the automation that I just talked about, how we can actually discover the data, profile the data, and quality, etc. Anyway, I have some screens to show. So let's start with discovering the data, discovering assets. So it's actually very easy, and so everything's automated. So when you start discovering the assets, all the user needs to do, or the data student needs to do, is to provide a connection. So I'm looking at where's my mouse? So I'm looking at the screen all the way to the left. So you provide a connection, and select the schema, and then all you have to do is then decide, what are the discovery options. So like the more you check, of course, the longer it takes. But the options that are available to the users are to analyze the columns. So that's basically understanding the content of your data. They can analyze the data quality, giving that will be calculating the data quality score, as well as automatically suggesting business terms or even assigning the business terms to the asset. As part of that, you can also select different data sampling methods, or like you can use the entire data set in order to to analyze all these aspects of your data. But of course, depending on how big your data is, that can take a very long time because you could have millions and millions of rows. So there are additional sampling capabilities in order to narrow that down, but still give you a relatively good result. So that's random sets, or the first X number of records, etc. Okay, so this is really from a user perspective, that's really all you need to do. Like provide the connection, select what you analyze, and then it'll just go away and do its thing. And then in terms of the output, the middle screen is basically what it will show. You can actually look at the data quality score, and that's if I've selected everything. So you can see the data quality scores have been calculated, what are the data classes, what are the suggested terms or discovered terms that may be related to your data. There are a number of methods that we do that actually. The UI made it so easy, so it doesn't look like there's a lot of technology behind this, but there is actually a lot. So I mean, all the user needs to do is say assign terms. But behind that, we actually analyze a number of things in order to come up with the suggested terms. It's from your data class mapping to the terms, but we also have additional ML logic in order to look at the patterns, how you have corrected the data, and then it will also improve over time, from a term suggestion perspective. And then to the right, so they're also, as part of the discovery, we also can discover relationships between assets. So, and what I show here is basically an example of that. So you can actually, if you have got a number of tables, you can just click one button, discover relationships, and they'll try to figure out if there are any, let's say, keys or foreign keys, basically identifying, the relations between the assets that you've selected. So that's on the data discovery. So as I mentioned, from a discovery perspective, you can actually include data quality, but by itself, data quality is also its own, set of features. So within data quality, you can actually analyze, select the ones they want to do analysis on, change the data rules, change the data quality dimensions in order to, see how, if you change certain dimensions, how, what are the criteria, that can actually alter the, or influence, the data quality score, can actually increase it or even decrease it based on additional rules and parameters that you actually set up, for that analysis. As part of the data quality analysis, you will also come up with, exception reports so that where, an example of where your assets will need to be worked on. And so from a offline perspective, then actually take that back, do your root cause analysis in order to figure out, where in your business process or maybe data process, where the breakdown is in order to figure out how you can actually improve the data quality in your organization in order to remediate, those data quality issues. So in terms of understanding your data, we talked about Lineage before. So this is how it would look. So it's a screenshot, in terms of, if the most commonly asked feature is data lineage, because everybody needs to know when I'm looking at the data, I really need to understand where it came from. So that's very critical information for the data consumers, for the data stewards and the auditors, in terms of, really knowing where that data comes from. If it has been transformed through other jobs, which jobs are those? So from an operational data lineage perspective, we also support that within Watson Knowledge Catalog. Okay, so now we get to the fun part, for me anyways. And so the last part is consuming your data. So just to recap what we've seen so far, we've built that data governance framework, defining what are the terms, the policies, the rules, have those all in place. You've discovered your data. Now you've created business-ready data. So now it's about delivering that business-ready data, for the data consumers to see how they actually use it. So now I'm actually going to move on to a live demo to show you, give you a feel of how the Watson Knowledge Catalog looks. And so I'm just going to demo a quick find, how you can actually see the business terms that have been associated with these assets, and then how you can actually consume this data, use it, or data showing the data prep tool as well. And that will pretty much round up, what I plan to show today. Okay, so without further ado, I'm actually going to move on to my my screen. So what you're seeing here is basically Watson Knowledge Catalog. So I'm a data scientist. I'm just going to do a quick demo. So just to give you some navigation, you might have seen a little bit of this when I showed you some of those screens earlier. So let's say, for example, from a catalog perspective, with Watson Knowledge Catalogs, I actually have access to, I can be given access to more than one catalog, actually. So by that, what I mean is, look at a catalog is like a collection of data assets. So I can have in my organization, I can actually have something that's available for, across the enterprise, all the common assets that everybody can access. But because I'm in the marketing department, so I may actually have access to additional catalogs, with only, assets that is really used by the marketing team. Okay. So from that perspective, from a organization perspective, there can be more than one catalog that can be created and tailored to the specific audience. So let's say today, I'm a data scientist. I don't really like browsing through assets. So I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for customer data. So I'm actually just doing, I'm doing a quick search. So for this time, I've tagged this earlier. So I'm just looking at PII, then I can now see, some of the hits, from that search. Just to illustrate, this is a global search. We can actually search across different things. The keyword search, I can search across, multiple catalogs. Projects I haven't quite mentioned yet, but basically catalogs is where you share data. Projects is where you put your data in so that you can have access to tools to actually work with the data. So it's kind of like the team area, enterprise area, or line of business areas. Okay, and so yeah, we can also search across the governance artifacts as well. So for now, I am specifically looking for some customer data I can use, for my analytics project. So I actually found it. Is this one here that's sitting in the catalog, my marketing catalog. So I'm just going to click on it. Okay. So here I'm going to actually show, the asset preview, the asset details to show you what you can actually see in the asset. So I have the asset, the description, I can actually see the column names, the data types, as well as, the data classes. So what you're seeing here is, actually I didn't mention earlier before, but as soon as you add an asset into a WKC catalog, we actually automatically run profiling in order to, find out what these data classes are. And one of the reasons is because we need those information. We need to understand the data classes because what I've set up in the environment is I've actually created data protection rules. And these data protection rules will automatically or dynamically mask the data and the assets. And I'll actually show you some examples right here. So here I have indicated that I have one column that has been obfuscated and one that has been redacted, and they're right here. So the email address, by obfuscation, what we mean is, we actually transform the data, but we do preserve the we do preserve the format. So so the actual values they would contain the real emails, but from what the user's seeing, these have been obfuscated, but you can still see pretty much the shape of it. Versus, this method, we just replace the credit card number, so you can't really use it or see it anymore. So from a data protection perspective or data masking, we have a third way to do that, and that's to replace the values with a hash value, MD5 value, so that that method actually preserves the referential integrity. So you can actually still use, let's say if I had substituted that with a hash value, that preserves referential integrity. So what that means is, like when I actually go to shaping this asset, I can actually still use this column as my key column to combine it, to join it with something else with the same value, because it hashed in the same way. Okay, so that is just an illustration of from a data consumer perspective, what I can see. Or just to reiterate, just to highlight that when we mask the data, it's basically we're just masking the sample data that you're seeing right here, the first 1,000 rows. This data is actually retrieved from the source system, so when we present the data, we're only presenting the sample data, and when we mask, we also just mask the sample data, not your real data sitting in your source system. Just to illustrate, the associating of the business terms, this is for some organizations that's highly valuable. They would actually have gone through the process of assigning business terms to these columns, so that when a user looks at this column CLV, no idea what it means, they can actually look it up and see that, from a business term perspective, that's the customer lifetime value, and that's what it means. So other things I would like to show is, the profiling information as well. So from a profiling perspective, we actually show, the histogram, the frequency distribution, provide some basic statistics as well, so it will come up very quickly. And so this is what it looks like. So it's still the same type of information that you saw before, the name, the data class, but now you actually have some additional information, which is actually very useful for data scientists. If they want to know, what type of values are actually in the data sets, then they can actually look through this as well. To promote collaboration, we also have the ability to provide comments. You can provide comments and rate it. And there's also, if you want to see who has updated the metadata of the data set, you can actually go through the forward lineage. This is slightly different from, the operational data lineage that you saw before. But here, this is all, what are the changes on the metadata in order to explain, who has changed the metadata on this asset. So to round that up, so that's basically, what a user can actually see on an asset. So what the user would do, once they have found the asset that they want to use, then what they can do is that they can actually add it to a project. So as I mentioned, when you add it to a project, so that's where all the tools are. So within the catalog, it's all about understanding. So once you're in the project, so that's basically where you can actually access the tool. So that's where I'm going to go now. So I'm not going to add it because I've added that early in the day. So and I'm going to go to the project and go to marketing project. Okay. So I'm just going to use a different asset to illustrate this. So just to give me more fancy charts, because what I want to show you is our data prep tool. So our data prep tool allows you to interactively work with the data asset, merge, one data set with another. You still have the same access to the profile and lineage information as you had in the catalog. But what I want to show is basically the refinery tool. Is what we call, when you refine data, that's the tool we will get into. And it has some cool visualizations that I want to show you. Okay, so as a data scientist, yes, we may have the profiling, the frequency distribution, but they may want to actually, try to look at their data in different ways and visualize the data, looking at perhaps, like a one column or two columns, just to use different charts in order to visualize, the content of that data. So this tool does take just a bit more time to load. But so here, so now I've loaded that into what we call the interactive UI. So I'm just going to start with that. So I'm a data scientist. I'm still exploring my assets. This online orders, probably has what I need. So I'm actually going to just try, to see, like just using the visualization tool to quickly, see, like I use different charts in order to visualize it. So here I will just pick a column. So let's say I'm just going to pick age. Okay, so I can actually visualize the data. So it will automatically, come select a chart for me in order to help me understand, what that is. So I picked age, so it gives me a histogram with some distribution. I'm not a statistician, so I won't be able to explain what this all means. But anyways, these are some of the tools that we actually have, from one of our IBM products. They actually provide us with all these capabilities. Okay, so and I can also use, like over here, I can also switch to looking at different things as well, or I can actually select different chart types. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is I can actually select more than one columns as well. And so let's say, for example, I'm going to pick product type, and maybe I'll pick age again. Should have kept it before. So let's say something like this, and I can actually easily switch charts. So here now I'm showing a bar, product type by age, but then I notice that they summed the age, but did not make sense. So I can actually easily just change by the mean. So as you can see, it's very interactive. I barely had to do anything. I don't have to. All I have to do is select the columns I'm interested in and just let the tool, make recommendations for me. And that's pretty much, the whole philosophy of WKC. It's about how to make things easy for the users, how to help them do things fast and efficiently. So that's really just on the visualization tool. And but the core of this is this is really not just for visualizing your data, but of course in order to create new data sets or to refine the data. So I'm just going to quickly go over what we can do. So from a data prep perspective, I can do the operation like point and click to add my steps. So one of the things that, let's go for the more complicated things. I can do the filter, do the renaming, removing duplicates, but I can actually join data assets as well, as I mentioned. So these are the different types of joins you can do, and you can actually add another asset in order to join two different assets, and these can be from different source systems as well. Okay. And so that's on the point and click. More for the users who are not familiar with coding. So if data scientists are typically very good programmers, so there also are commands that are available as well, so that they can actually add to those steps as well. So I'm not going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to run it because there's nothing exciting there other than a job will be kicked off and then a new asset is created. But from a data flow perspective, so once I'm ready, then I can actually create that job, and then as part of that, I can also decide, where that job gets, where the output data set is going to. Let me see this here, right? Yeah, so where the output is going to be. I don't have too many connections in this setup just yet. So, but basically, when you can actually determine where the output is going to be, it can come back as a CSV file inside the project, or if you've got data sources, so you can change the location. So the location can be any connectors that WKC supports, and we support over 30 connectors in the system. So you can actually redirect, where the new target asset that's created, where that will be located. It could be back to your data lake, could be DB2, could be AWS S3, and the different data sources, as long as you have a connection in that project. Okay, so so that basically rounds up the demo. And so I'm just going to quickly go through it because these are just backup slides. And now I'm going to start wrapping up in terms of some of the call to actions, what you can actually do. There's a Forrester report. I think this deck will be distributed. So there's also our web page. You can take a look if you want to see more information. And so if you want to try it out for free, we also have a WKC in the public cloud edition. So we have a free, in our public cloud, WKC comes in 3 editions. There's one free one that you can actually use as a trial. Free to sign up, free to use, but has got limited capabilities. Now, in the cloud version, you won't get everything that you just saw. And here I'm going to provide you with, like a show of the different capabilities that you have. So what I just showed you earlier today is basically the WKC for Cloud Pak for Data in version 2.5. That'll be coming out shortly in November, in fact. So all the things that I talked about and I showed you today, I think I've pretty much either talked about or demoed, on the left-hand side. So that's all available in WKC in version 2.5. So in the cloud, it's not, we don't have, it's not feature, feature parity yet. But at least in the cloud, we want to just try it out, try out the catalog itself, the flow, that's a very simple, this is a light free version. This is the one. And so some basic glossary terms, you won't have the relationships and things like that. So self-explanatory as to what you can do in the free edition. And also with the asterisk is, even though we provide categories, it's not quite what I showed you in the WKC for Cloud Pak for Data. So there are some limitations in there as well. So Alex, I think I have concluded, what I wanted to show. So if you want to wrap this up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Susanna. I would like to mention, if you guys wanted to dive deeper into the platform or see a more personalized demonstration of the tool, please feel free to reach out to us. We can walk you through that as well. And as Susanna mentioned, there's a free trial version on there that you could explore as well. And it's a great way to get started. And as always, we're happy to guide you along the way. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in with us this afternoon. I hope you guys have a great Halloween and enjoy the rest of your week.